You've probably heard me ask the question on this show, what's the first syllable in the word numbers? That's right, num. Numbers are meaningless to our storytelling brain unless they are placed in the context of a story. This is especially true with our personal finances. And today's guest has found a new way to help you plan a successful financial future through the use of story. Your story. Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell. Jason Leong is the co-founder and CEO of Pocketsmith, personal finance software serving customers in 190 countries. Jason has shown that you can achieve money confidence by viewing your financial future as a narrative, not a number. You'll see how Pocketsmith transforms money anxiety into empowered decision-making. The fairy godmother story about financial empowerment spreading through communities, and how seeing your financial future as a story helps you own it. Hi, Jason. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Park. Thanks for having me on.
You are coming to us from way down under in New Zealand. Whereabouts are you in New Zealand?
We like to call it the deep, deep south. We live in, I'm calling in from Dunedin, which is one of the southernmost cities in New Zealand. We've got two islands, the North and the South Island. And the South Island's where it's at. You know, it's Lord of the Rings country. And Pocketsmith is headquartered down here.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. It's a beautiful country. Just pre-COVID, that was our last big international trip. Michelle and I went to Auckland. I was doing some work with social media conference out there and storytelling, and then we found our way down to Queenstown and spent about 4 or 5 days down there before we then headed north to Melbourne. And I can tell you, Queenstown is one of the most spectacular places I've ever been to.
I'm glad to hear it. It's a breath of fresh air. It's funny you should mention COVID too, because New Zealand cleared out. We had some pretty strict laws around quarantine, and nobody came and went from the country. And it was one of those rare occasions where we could go to Queenstown and just have it just nearly empty. It was hard for businesses, but it was a real experience, a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah, it was crowded-ish for us, and we were there now. It was early March 2019, which would have been your summertime, moving into fall, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was not too bad. I mean, we boated on the lake, we went on hikes. I didn't do the bungee jumping. I just couldn't muster the courage for that.
I don't blame you. I wouldn't do it myself.
Being an entrepreneur is enough, right?
I think so, yeah.
15 years in developing Pocketsmith, that takes an awful lot of courage and energy. And probably the last thing you need to do is jump off another cliff in the hope something's going to catch you.
Exactly. I'd say it's hair raising, but as you can tell, like the years of building a business have just basically claimed my hair. So.
Give us a very quick description on what Pocketsmith is and what inspired you to create it.
Pocketsmith is personal finance software for the household CFO. And that's the unsung hero of the household. Everyone has one. And this is the person who keeps track of financial goals, budgeting, organizing the money, communicating that to other family members. And, what we do is we provide online software to help people keep track of their finances, to plan and to look into the future. And we do this by connecting to nearly every bank in the world. So we're in 190 countries.
Okay, so my listeners right now are saying, dude, what are you doing? This is the Business of Story. Why do we have a financial management software guy on the show? But what intrigued me about your pitch about coming onto the show is how you guys are flipping the script or changing the story for your users, literally thinking about storytelling in their finances and how they use Pocketsmith.
When we started, and it's a really good point you're making, the story has changed for us as well. So we didn't intend to build the product that we have today. The genesis of Pocketsmith was really me trying to figure out how much I was going to have in the future. I was working on my first jobs. I had just bought this house. And of course, that changes the game when it comes to how much disposable income you've got. My family lives in Malaysia. And so I thought, okay, well, given this change in my circumstances, when am I going to be able to afford to travel to see my friends and family again? And I just thought, well, it'd be good if I could just have a calendar and if I could pick a day, any day in the future, and it could tell me how much money I would have, I would know that I could afford to do something then. So
And
that
that
was
would
the
be
whole idea.
totally based on your spending habits right now.
Yeah, yeah, your incomes and expenses. So the idea was just to get away from spreadsheets, but to have a calendar. Because back then I was using iCal on my Mac, and they were scheduling everything in there. I figured if I could schedule my incomes and outgoing bills, and just take those numbers and create a daily running balance of my finances, that could work for me. So that was the first version of Pocketsmith. We wanted to keep it very simple and just let people do a forecast, a cash forecast on their personal finances. We quickly learned from our users, we built an alpha version in 4 weeks. We got it out there, and people said, this is cool, but we need more information. We need more to understand how much we've been spending in the past. So based on that, we just started to build out the product. And what we have today is a result of talking to our customers.
Mm. And I'm curious how you are changing that story because so many of us, me included, especially when we are young in our careers and growing families and we don't really have a pot to piss in, we tell ourselves horror stories about money. And mine, I know where mine came from, and it was inadvertently from my dad. He was a Depression era kid growing up in North Dakota. And Jason, to give you an idea about how the Depression hit him, he said one cold winter is like 20 below zero. For Christmas morning, he got one gift, and that was the hand knitted mittens by his aunt. And that was the
Mm,
only thing under the tree for him. And he said it was the best Christmas present he ever had. Now, advance forward to me in the second grade. And they had just built this beautiful new home. My mother, my 100-year-old mother, is still living in it up north of
amazing.
Seattle. And we were downstairs in the basement. There were 7 of us kids. So it was like this large 2-story rambler with a daylight basement in it and bedrooms downstairs.
Beautiful.
And when we moved in, he did not finish off the basement. In fact, there was no drywall up. We were just sleeping in bedrooms with studs between us. But I noticed all this extra plumbing down there, like you
Mm,
would put in a kitchen and other things. And I said, Dad, what's that plumbing for? And he said, well, just in case if something happens with our finances, we could always build this out as a second home down here and rent it out to a family.
mm.
And I did not realize the impact that had on me as a kid. But I'm like, oh my God, is that going to happen? I mean, are we going to have total strangers living downstairs? But my father was very pragmatic. He made a great, income. He built a really wonderful family in the finances. But man, I got to tell you, Jason, that was a story I was telling myself for decades. Like, oh my God, what could happen tomorrow that I need to present today? And I think that actually impacts your earning potential in some ways.
That is so true. And I heard on a podcast recently that you wouldn't really understand what it means to go through financial hardship if you haven't lived through it. And there is theory, but there is lived experience, and that really shapes how you think about your money. It shapes how it shapes your values, and it shapes again the idea of having a contingency. And we know that the cost of living is starting to bite everywhere in the world now, and everyone's going through probably for the first time a period of austerity. But this, the old timers will probably go, I've been through this before, and I'm going to survive this. But you have a mindset of just being prepared. My dad also came out of poverty, and he had that really shaped how he talked to his family, talked to us about money. And I mean, even then, I was still one generation removed from it. It didn't take basically the thing that really humbled us was, we were a bootstrap startup to begin with, right? So we had ideas of building this great tech business. 4 years in, we were still not paying ourselves, and we were broke. So I'd given up this well-paying job to start something up, and it was so much fun, pure creation. Then we realized, hang on, we need to start making some money. But the process of being poor really taught me a lot about, I think it reset my values around money. I realized that I may have been broke, but I wasn't unhappy. And I, prior to that, thought that I needed a lot to be happy. There are things, that money could really supplement your life with options and all of that. But I guess, the experience, it's quite poetic. The experience of building a product for personal finances had basically given me the reset I needed to be able to empathize with the people we're helping. So I, you know, I, it's funny to say, I'd encourage everyone to go through a time of financial hardship, because it really does make you grateful for everything you've got.
Well, it's like all stories, right? No conflict, no story. So you don't go through financial hardships or any hardships for that matter. You don't learn. I mean, because you're going to learn in the days of struggle.
Yeah.
So, as I've done with all of our guests, I ran the Pocketsmith through our brand StoryCycle Genie, and I sent you the findings today. What did you initially think of it?
I thought it nailed it. I was trying to figure out what this genie was. Is it a human being, or is it a robot, or is it an automaton, or someone who lives in your basement? But it really nailed a lot of the spots. And granted, I'm not sure if your listeners be seeing this sort of stuff here, but you've really identified our core value proposition. You've identified what it is that we're looking to help people with, and what's different to a lot of personal financial tools out there that help you understand where you're at right now. We think of ourselves as a sort of a time machine for your money. So, there's your historical stuff, there's what's happening right now, but most importantly, what's going to happen in the future. And that's something that we think helps alleviate people of that anxiety. And I think you really nailed it in that Genie report as well. What is the key thing we're trying to help people with? It's just to feel a little bit more comfortable with the decisions you're going to make in the future. And we've always thought that, if you knew exactly what was going to happen in the future, you'd make the right call every single time.
Well, we will hold on that, the brand purpose statement, because I'm going to do something for the first time with a guest I've never done, and that is I used your brand story that the Genie created and the intel that you had sent through our guest rap sheet to be on the show that everybody does.
Mm.
And I asked the Genie, I said, I want you following the Pocketsmith brand story step by step through the StoryCycle system, and then take the intel that Jason sent me, and I want you to create a step by step outline for the show. And that's what we did, and that's what we're going to pursue right now. And it's
Amazing.
going to give you the opportunity to back up and support the stories that the Genie has identified through looking at your website and some other materials. So the very first thing it always asks and looks at is like, who is the central figure in your story? Meaning, who is the hero on this journey? What is, the individual, the main person? And
Mm.
it talks about, it gave us three, and I'm just curious if these are right, and then I want to focus on the first one. Future planners, financial anxiety sufferers, and smart decision makers.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, they encapsulate what we call the household CFO, and anyone who manages the household finances will have these three key tasks ahead of them. How heavy each one weighs on their shoulders really depends on the stage that their lives are at. So yes, I think it gets 100% for all three.
100%. Okay, so now you are reframing their story from being a bill payer to a
Mm,
CFO, right?
mm.
You said the person who manages the money chores at home is the unsung hero of the household, and therefore is truly the CFO of the household. How do you tell that story?
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's a very good question. I'm trying to think of the context in which we tell the story. We advocate for our users, so that's one way we do it. We talk about the lives that we've helped, the people we encounter along the way. Now, would that be a good lens to describe this?
Yeah, well, didn't you have something like the fairy godmother example? Would
Yeah.
that be the lens?
So,
I don't
so,
know that story.
so this is one of my favorite stories. We were in Sydney last year meeting a bunch of customers. So Australia is one of our biggest markets. And we pulled some users together, people we hadn't met before, and we said, "Hey, we just love to show you some new features, but also just to hear from you." And one of our users was someone with dyscalculia. It's a condition I'd not heard of before, but it's effectively dyslexia for numbers. She had recently separated from a partner. And this is a very common story. When she was with her partner, he took care of everything. He was the household CFO. So she didn't have to think about money. She didn't have to think about budgeting. And when they separated, she found herself in a pretty tough situation. She suddenly had to take control of her money. Now, then she came across Pocketsmith. And one of the things that we do as a company with our product is that we celebrate diversity. We don't have a prescriptive way for you to manage your money because we know that finances are different. You have a mental map of your money that is unique to you. And this approach really worked for her. So she looked at the product, she looked at the calendar that I described earlier. Here's a visual way of looking at your money along with the graphs. And it started to dawn on her that, hey, I can actually understand finances for the first time in my life. So, what Pocketsmith let her do, and I was so humbled by the story, she said it helped her finally see meaning in these numbers. And it helped her overcome dyscalculia to be a financial controller, to be that CFO of her household. But beyond that, it's inspired her to be the fairy godmother for her circle of friends. And she's with her renewed confidence in her money. She talks about money with her friends. She buys books for them. She gets them together. She helps them out. So it goes to show that financial empowerment, financial inclusion doesn't affect just the one person, but it has the potential to impact a community of people. And that's, yeah, I just, I never would have thought that from like 17 years ago, thinking about this calendar visual approach to money, that I would have a story like that, and hopefully many, many more that I don't even know about. But it,
And
it
so
rings true.
that's pretty common then, I guess, in all households is they want this clarity and this financial security, but they don't have it. They're frustrated.
Mm.
And because of the lack of clarity, they have this great concern and start telling themselves stories about the pending doom, or I'm an idiot because I can't keep my numbers together, or
Mm.
any number of stories. Do you think that is just primarily a survival thing that we all so depend on income and money to live, that if we feel we're not good at it, we tell ourselves these negative stories out of pure survival?
I do, yes, I think so. I think that, I mean, there's so many aspects to why finances are difficult. What you say is true, but I think it's also born of the fact that many education systems worldwide don't equip kids with the basics for how to navigate the world of finances. See, they might teach you accounting, but they don't tell you about how to manage personal debt, or to get a mortgage, or to do your basic household finances. And so there isn't a structured system for people to think about money. They often are just left to their own devices. And so you're really fortunate if you had an upbringing where you could speak about finances with your family. You're fortunate if you're educated, but if not, then really you find yourself struggling. The other thing that I guess grinds my gears is that I feel that the financial system is really like it. The odds are stacked against people. When I think about how difficult it is, and here's I think about telling the time, right? So the fact that we have to exist as a product in order for you to understand how much you've spent your money on and where your money is going, it's a lot like asking for the time and being told to make the clock yourself. And in what universe does that even make sense? However, our financial systems are so complex. You might be earning money from different sources, you might be banking with different institutions, and then it's up to you to cobble a solution together to see the meaning in your finances. And it shouldn't be that difficult. So I think that's actually financial exclusion in broad daylight, and we need to do a lot better. So,
Well, and you had said earlier about being the time machine for your money, which I think is really good. That's a very interesting sort of blow up my theater of the mind to picture that. Yet
mm,
when I went through the Pocketsmith brand story from the Genie, I didn't see that mentioned in there. Do you not talk about that?
we don't. It feels like it's some. It's a. It was a It was something we a few years ago. Experimented with a few years ago in terms of telling the story of the product, and it says different things to different people, and it doesn't particularly address the heroes of the story, you know? So, I mean, it's got a very Apple-esque, very visionary statement, and perhaps we might come back to that again, but we're probably not a mature enough brand to have that single statement just penetrate the consciousnesses of the people that we wanna help. But it does expand the theater of your mind. It does sort of
Yeah.
it's an intriguing concept, isn't it?
Well, that's interesting. Let's just talk about that for a second, especially from brand building, because you have spent 17 years building the Pocketsmith brand, and I'm sure you've taken
Mhm.
some missteps, as we all have, and you've had a lot of successes. So here is something that bubbled out of you without even trying, and it caught my attention. The
Yes.
time machine for your money. And then when I asked you, you said, well, you've tried it, but it didn't really work. Could you give us a little bit more brand insight as the brand owner, as the
Mm.
brand storyteller? Just for those listening, in case they're trying something that they love, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be resonating?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is, I think it happens with most smaller companies. So when we tried this on, we would have been maybe 3 or 4 years old, and again, really struggling to find customers at that point. We didn't really know. We didn't have a marketing team, so this is just me and my co-founder James just poking at the brand with a stick. Um, and we were aspirational, so we were thinking Apple level of like recognition. Like, how do we put something out there that gets people to go, "Wow, this is super cool." Of course, a strapline does not make a brand, and I mean, I guess the results really showed how I wouldn't say it was ineffective, but we weren't putting any muscle behind that messaging either. So we had it on our website. And probably the mistake that we made was we didn't get the word out. We didn't have the money to spend on marketing. We didn't do any content. We didn't have our own channels. We just put that up there and hoped that it would gain traction. What we've done over the last 5 years, 6 years, as a contrast, is now we're 29 people. We have a distinct culture, and we have that many more customers that we can refer to. So our brand journey began within. So we took a look at the values that we embody as a company, what it is that we want to do, and who it is that we feel as a consumer facing business, who do we are we most aligned with in terms of the people who would find our product useful. And from there, we built it out. We started to think about psychographics rather than demographics. So that's the other thing that we were mistaken about. We thought, hey, Pocketsmiths for the 25 to 45-year-old crowd. They're going through life stage changes. Maybe that's what we need to hammer in. But it's not entirely true because there are people of all ages, all over the world with similar problems or in fact a similar perspective on their money. Today, a household CFO could be 18. They could be someone who's been thinking about building a side hustle since they were in grade school. And with all of the tools available today, and all of the knowledge that we didn't have when we were kids, they've elevated their skills to the point where they're thinking about building a business for themselves at an early age. So that's a household CFO. So going with demographics excludes a lot of people that we could potentially serve. So we
Mhm.
really thought about the psychographic profile, and then we started to think about how do we actually produce content that would resonate with these people? How do we embark on more conversations with our customers? So what we had back then was a strap line. What I'd love to do is to come back to it at some point, and it sounds like it resonates with you. So that's a good sign already. But it will work now that we've got, I think, a better machine behind our marketing
Mhm.
endeavors.
Yeah, you gotta back it up, and you were talking about psychographics, and I couldn't agree with you more that and with the StoryCycle Genie, it not only identified your top 3 audiences, but
Mm,
also gave you those emotional triggers, the psychographics of it, if you will. We talked a little bit about the future planners. Let's talk about your second audience, financial anxiety sufferers,
mm,
and the emotional triggers it came up with were their challenges are managing stress and worry about financial security and future stability.
mhm,
Their fears, what do they fear? Financial problems they can't predict or prepare for due to uncertainty. What frustrates them? Constant wondering if current financial choices are right without clear future visibility. And what do they ultimately want? What do they aspire to? Peace of mind that comes from knowing their financial future is secure and predictable. So,
hmm
does that sound right to you? Does it nail your psychographics?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that we layer on top of that is that there is our our ideal customers have an innate sense of curiosity about their money. So the thing about personal finances is that there needs to be a will to step into that realm, to want to work with your finances, to be curious about it, to go, you know what, I'm going to plumb these depths, and I may not like what I see, but I'm going to face it, and it's going to be better for me. That's not everyone. So this is a distinct psychographic profile that we aim for: a sense of curiosity, a sense of like the maker mentality. We think about buying off the shelf versus Lego. And the thing is, the product that we've put in front of our customers isn't for everyone. We're thinking about, this is Adobe Photoshop relative to MS Paint. There are so many bells and whistles. And if you know how to make it fly, it's going to be great for you. But the learning curve is unapologetically steep. But the
Yeah.
people who love Lego love what they can do with Pocketsmith. They can snap things together to build the things that really suit their mental model. They can see the results that they just want to see. They can hone in on the facts in their finances that make the most sense to them, and not just what's displayed by default. So yes, there are the people who are. I mean, everyone seeks peace. Everyone seeks lowered anxiety. But there will be a segment of people who are curious about the different ways they can go about achieving that.
hmm So you have that maker, that creative mentality of coming in and working on Pocketsmith. And what you're saying is that I could build it to my own needs and plug
Mhm.
and play different pieces of it,
Yep, yep. So
like a Lego system, to be able to see the story that is both fact and fiction. Because if you were trying to figure out where you're going to be in 30 years, that's fiction. The
yes,
fact is how you are operating right now and what you need to do right now in order to make that 30-year-old fiction fact in 3 decades.
very true. And the thing is, we would say that like it's software that grows with you. So as I've been using it over the last 17 years, I too have changed as a person, in terms of my values, in terms of my earning capacity, in terms of what I want to track. But the thing about Pocketsmith is that you only use 20% of it at any stage of your life, but you're making sense of the data that is most important to you at this point in time. So we don't encourage people to track everything. You don't want to boil the ocean. You want to focus on really what's meaningful to you. You want to invest the time in it, but it's got to give you back that time as well.
hmm So when we were going through those emotional triggers, and you said, "Well, there's some others in there too, this curiosity thing and
Mm,
whatever." If you were working inside the genie, you would just iterate inside the genie and tell it that, and
yeah,
with every iteration, it gets smarter about you and about your brand, about what you're trying to do, and the content gets created faster and it's always on brand. But I brought that up about the idea of these financial triggers, or emotional triggers with the financial anxiety sufferers, because I wanted to set up the story about your co-founder friend, the prodigal son. And the reason why I don't know the story, but I think it can resonate with me because when I was a very young man, I had a paper route and I made some money and put it in the bank and I got a checking account. And of course, within about 3 days, I bounced my first check. And my dad said, "What's going on? You ran out of money. How'd you bounce checks?" And apparently, I don't remember this, but he reminded me about this throughout my life. He
yeah.
said, "Yeah, you sat there and said, 'Dad, I've got to have more money because I still have more checks in my checkbook.'" But maybe I just blacked that out, but it also made me very self-conscious about very poor financial, money handling skills.
Yes.
But that then, when I saw your tip about the prodigal son, I thought, maybe this is the same kind of story.
This is one of our earliest success stories, and this is when we're still incubating Pocketsmith and building it out. And our some of our most avid users were just in our community of founders. And it was just an aside when one of our friends, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, your product has improved my relationship with my dad." And I said, "Well, how so?" And he goes, "Well, he never respected me because I never understood my own personal finances. He never really saw me as a grown up because I didn't have the skills that he thought I should have had." And it's pretty brutal to think about that because, again, as a parent, you would think, well, perhaps it's incumbent upon you, the parent, to imbue your children with these skills. But it's beyond me to go into that relationship. But it showed how communication is so important when it comes to money. And no doubt, between parents and children, there will be different perspectives on money and a different weight on how, I guess, how capable you are as an adult, depending on your ability to understand your ins and outs. But this one little thing, if it just improved this person's relationship with his dad markedly, and they could actually start to have a conversation on a whole other level, and it opened up other avenues of storytelling in between father and son. And maybe it was just like the Chinese talk about your chi, your energy flow being blocked. It felt that this one little insight unblocked a whole wealth of stories with their relationship, and that was incredible for us.
And that's interesting because it may have just been on that guy. He may have been telling himself a bigger story than what was really there, that his dad didn't appreciate him or think he had grown up.
Right,
His
right.
dad may not have thought that at all, but the storyteller had to first gain their own confidence through your
Yes.
product to
Yeah.
be able to go and sit down with his dad. And then maybe it did open some doors with the dad too, but you just never know how that's playing out. The dad may
No.
well have sat there and said, I had no idea, you know?
I'd like to think that was the case too, because you're right. There's a deep sense of shame when it comes to money, and again, it's because there's been no, I guess, standard way of walking people into the financial world. We're all taught to read. We're all taught to do math, but finances, because there's been an absence of a syllabus, people are left to their own devices. And again, this taboo of money starts to form. If you're left to, depending on your predilections, you may feel a deep sense of shame because you don't know about a certain aspect of your finances, and that's awful. It does impact. It adds to the anxiety, and there's a huge weight. When we were making Pocketsmith to start with, we didn't contend with any of these human emotions. We thought we're making a personal accounting product. It's pretty cut and dried, but now we realize that we've tapped into the human condition and a really beautiful, fragile, responsive, growing part of it. And who would have thought? This is just financial software, but beyond the finances, I mean, it's just a gate. It's really just a vehicle by which we. I'm trying to find an analogy here, but
Well, it
we
was an unintended consequence that you had this emotional power, it sounds like, that helped
well,
people.
that, and I think it reconnects us with why we started the business, which was, we're probably more artists than technologists. I mean, we're very good technologists, but we made the product, and this is back in 2008 when there's a lot of optimism about building small companies that could reach the world. And we felt, would it be amazing if we could touch the lives of someone right across of people right across the globe with this thing that we made, and to actually have these stories come back to validate our mission. That's just been one of the. It's why we get out of bed. It's one of the greatest joys of my life.
Well, it leads to the brand position statement the StoryCycle Genie crafted for you, again, based off of how you all are already telling your story. And it
Mm,
says Pocketsmith is the only personal finance platform that transforms financial uncertainty into crystal clear future visibility through advanced 30-year forecasting technology, empowering confident decision making for major life goals.
mm. Well, I mean, like, I wouldn't be as bold as to say we're the only software that does it, but we'd be one of the few. Certainly, forecasting is that's what really sets us apart. We still put ourselves out there as because not everyone needs forecasting, but everyone wants to get their finances organized. But there really is the jewel in our crown, and it does hit home. I think that brand positioning of getting people to think about their futures, hence, like why I suppose the time machine thing is quite intriguing, and we don't push for that hard enough on our homepage quite yet. I think we're walking our way back into it, but what we're
All
learning.
right, Jason, then I'm going to push on you. When you said, I don't think we are the only personal finance platform that transformed financial uncertainty into crystal clear future. Okay, what could you do? What could you own? And maybe what do you already own
Mm,
that perhaps you're missing that can make you the only personal finance platform that does something? Because everyone else is crunching numbers too,
sure,
but
yeah.
you're creating a headspace around financial freedom that most platforms that I've experienced with don't do.
Mm.
So as a branding consultant, I would say to you, okay, Jason, what is the one thing you do that nobody else is doing?
The one thing we do is we are the product that adapts to you. Every other product
Mm.
out there will have a very simple system for you to use, or they have a prescriptive way of managing your money. We are the only product that actually builds itself around you. It wraps itself around you. It makes itself yours. And if forecasting is your thing, absolutely. If you're digging into the numbers, if you want to find the facts in your finances, it's there for you. If it's there for you to share your finances with family members, if you are someone who is a global citizen with accounts in different countries and locales and currencies, it's for you. So, you can throw anything at it, and it will be, it'll be yours. So I think where what I'd like to say with Pocketsmith is it's where you'll eventually end up. And that Kiwi modesty thing really does kick in hard when, like in contrast to, this is why like we'd have to adapt ourselves to survive in America, because we're not good at saying we are, like, truthfully the only thing out there that's for you. I mean, we probably are, but there's that modesty kicks in. It kicks in
Okay, then
hard.
let me ask you this. In all of the problems that you helped solve for your customers financially,
Yes,
what do they all level up to? What is the one problem Pocketsmith solves?
it is that absence of anxiety. It's a sense of confidence that instills in you and the ability to make decisions. Many other products give you, here's where you're at. This is what you've done. But then what next? Where do I go from here? What we do gives you, again, as I said earlier, if you could see the future, if you could see all the possible outcomes, you'd pick the best one, wouldn't you? And so, along with the forecasting abilities, we let people make what if scenarios. And oftentimes people are at a crossroads. They're like, well, what if one of us loses an income? Or can we afford to have a kid? Can we go into that new phase of life just with a full heart, and be fully present for the choices that we're going to make? That is where we step in, because we're excited about where people are going. We're excited about being there with them for the journey. Yes, you need to have an understanding of what you've currently got and where you've been, but we're here to support you in your dreams, because ultimately that's what matters. What's in the past is in the past, but what we want to be there to see is, how do we help you make how do we help you realize your goals, realize what makes you happiest in life? It's not necessarily about how much money you're going to have, but what choices can you make that are most appropriate to the values that you hold? And how much love can you have in your life?
Hmm.
That's where we live.
So, what I'm hearing you say is you are asking people to own it,
Mm,
that they have to embrace it, that they have to be accountable, that they have to own their financial future. If you want, nobody wants this, but if you end up being destitute in 30 years, that's your problem. You created that.
Yes.
If you want to be, rich in however you want to define rich, and so you are willing to make the necessary choices and even give up things right now, well, you own that. So I'm talking about owning in the way of accountability,
Hmm.
owning in the way of courage, and owning in the way of just understanding what the future can hold if I do this right now. So Pocketsmith is the only platform worldwide that enables you to actually own your financial future.
I think you've nailed it. There could be on our
Well, that's
site,
what you're
own your
telling me. I
financial
mean,
future. Yeah,
that's what, and
yeah.
and you have a unique value proposition. I'll tell you, Jason,
Mm,
most people that come on this show, and this has really surprised me. I've been in the branding world for 40 years. I
mm.
thought pretty much everybody had a unique value proposition. I will say 9 out of 10 people that show up on this show that have gone through the StoryCycle Genie do not have one. You do have one, and the StoryCycle Genie found it. So
Mm.
it means you're communicating it well. See your financial future clearly, right? That's your UVP.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. And then what's the next thing? By seeing your financial future clearly, that's what you make. But
Mm.
what do you actually make happen in their lives when you can see your financial future clearly? What does that level up to?
Oh, well, I mean, a degree of self-actualization. I think everybody has dreams, has goals, and what we want to do is help people materialize them. So when you own your current financial situation, you have the confidence to then look forward and to think about the options that you have. That's the fun part, you know? Most people do dream about it, but they're hesitant to take that step because well, am I going to be able to do it? And then they might make bad decisions. They get into more debt to fund the future that they want. And really, was that the future you wanted anyway, you know? So I think the
Hmm.
sense of, well, first of all, when you examine your current finances, you're really examining your values as well. You're taking a good long look at what you deem is worth paying for and what's not. And all of us have things that we think, oh, dang, I could rein this in, or I could invest a little bit more in that. But you won't know until you really take a look at where you've been. And so going forward, we help you stick to plan. You know, you might, and it sounds prosaic, but it really comes back down to setting those budgets. I'm gonna have a forecast. In order to achieve that forecast, I need to set some fixed budgets so I can stick to the plan. And Pocketsmith is gonna help me get to that point. It's okay to roll with the punches. You know, you're not meant to be an A+ student because life happens. But yeah, we're there to help you stay in control.
You're there to help them own it.
To own it, yeah. I mean, years ago, before I made Pocketsmith, in fact, I thought about, just that very first version of that calendar that gave me that initial insight into how much I was gonna have in the future. I felt that prior to seeing that insight, I was like crossing the road blind. You know, can you imagine crossing the road blind without seeing cars coming at you, and you don't know how to anticipate life. It's mind-blowing to me. So the I think realizing the amount of anxiety that I was carrying, or in fact just the things that I was just putting on the shelf, and that's the easiest thing to do with finances, which is it's too hard. It goes into the too hard basket. Not going to think about it. I'll roll with it when things happen. But when you do have that foresight, suddenly you realize just how awful the status quo was.
Yeah.
Mm,
So it's going through your personality traits, the OO exercise, and it identifies 3 one-word descriptors for 3 categories. Your overall brand or organization says it's sophisticated, innovative, reliable.
mm,
Your offering says that what do people experience when they're actually using your product? Enlightening, empowering, reassuring. And then finally, the outcomes. What do they get from it? Clarity, confidence, and security, which they all make a lot of sense. Now,
mhm.
Jason, we use those, the brands that go through the process, we'll now use those as story triggers. And I want to give you an example with an example you sent me. Let's look at offering. And it says empowering is one of your words. The platform experience gives users control and confidence over their financial decisions through comprehensive data and projections. So, with that, if you do agree that you are empowering, and that may be one of the words that should be on your 9 one-word personality exercise, tell me the story about the cold turkey story.
Oh, well, yes. It
Because
took me.
that to me sounds like it's an empowering story.
It's very simple. It was one of our users who's working really hard to kick a smoking habit, and it just never worked. Never worked until simply he took a look at how much he was spending on cigarettes, and it wasn't the health aspect of it that got him to quit cold turkey. It was the other things in his life that he was giving up for this habit, and cigarettes aren't cheap. And that was enough for the switch to be flicked in his head to go, you know what? I've got better things to spend my money on. And I'm gonna focus on my family. I'm gonna focus on the things that we can do together. If I were just to take this expenditure off the shelf. And it's interesting because the it's great to see that a financial trigger is powerful enough for you to kick a lifetime habit when nicotine, an addictive substance, is actually involved. So it does show the power of positive thinking, the power of changing the priorities in your mind, and the power of actually seeing what's in front of you. It's the cold hard truth of your finances, of your life, of your values. And clearly, we're talking about looking at your finances and understanding if you're spending money on things that you value. And when he took a look at his life, he realized that spending money on cigarettes wasn't something that he valued, but spending money on his family was. And that was enough for him to switch track and change his habits.
So Pocketsmith empowered him to do that with that financial trigger. Do you tell that story on your website?
Yeah, we do actually. We have a bank of customer stories on our blog, and they're all unique. They're all fun. They're all people from different walks of life.
And they're all
Right.
kind of surprising, are they? In that it's not just about, hey, I saved $100,000, but it's talking more about the outcome, the impact that
Yeah,
has.
more about life. I mean, that's what we love actually. Life stories. It's one of the joys of working in a consumer facing business. It's not so much about the dollars and cents, but really about the outcomes for people. And the thing is, being in this business for that many years and working with people across different borders, we're all fundamentally the same. We're all fundamentally looking for the same things. We're looking to find more love in our life. We're looking to find security. We're looking to be happy. So, and these are the stories that we put out there to reinforce, I guess, that hope, that ambition, to give people a sense of like, yeah, this is why I'm doing it. It's not because I particularly want to be financially savvy, but I want to have the things in my life that I deserve, that my family deserves.
So you had said earlier in some of the notes that you sent over that you guys are really more artists with great technical chops. And so you're bringing artistry to financial planning so that you're taking the doom and gloom out of the finances. Or what I always like to say is, Jason, what's the first syllable in the word numbers?
It's N numb.
No, syllable, numb. Right? So you
Numbers
guys
is
are
numb.
addressing that. Well, I'm numb. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to put it away by artfully helping people envision a new story and then sharing those stories. And I think maybe the genie picked up on that in the way you were presenting that on your website, because it boils down 3 archetypes. You have a primary archetype, and it's not a big surpriser that it came in as the sage,
Mm.
65%. You guys know what you're doing or whatever. Backed up with the magician, the visionary magician, and then the caregiver, the
Mm.
guardian. And I'm curious, how do those 3 personality types resonate with you?
Oh, I mean, the caregiver, it speaks to the hugely empathetic nature of us as people within the company. And we talk about Pocksmith as being a humanist company. So we are in the business. So finances really are a conduit. That was the word I was looking for earlier. A conduit
Hmm.
to a better life. Um, so the sage component, that is the biggest because we're really providing a platform, a bunch of solutions, a way for people to organize their financial thoughts, their actual finances, and we that's banked on years of experience, which we've also gleaned from our user base, right? So we've understood the pain points. We spent a lot of time speaking to people, and so this is the product of our knowledge and our inspiration, and we're really proud of it. And the second part of it is the magician. So I, yeah, I sort of immediately conjures up an image of a purple velour jacket. But
Had
maybe
you ever thought of the magician archetype for yourself before?
I do quite like that. I feel that, and we're unique in the sense that we haven't sought investment. So Pocketsmith just really has three shareholders, and my co-founder James and I hold 90% of the company. It's a reason why it was a bit of a struggle to get going at the start, but as I said, it was a humbling experience. Now, this independence gives us the license to make, fun decisions, stupid ones. We can experiment. We can tinker with features that we don't think anyone would, find useful. Some things are amazing. Some things fall by the wayside. But the sense of being able to create, and they were not a company that is, fully bound to the whims of its shareholders. I mean, being the two, we're not that great in terms of squeezing every last dime out of the company. We're really in it for the fun of it, for pushing some boundaries. And I think that's where the magic really happens. It's giving ourselves the space to do that. And that's been one of the biggest gifts we've received for keeping the company independent. So I'm really glad that it's identified that, because we take pride in being able to make a little bit of magic and have a little bit of fun with the product.
Then finally, and we told people at the beginning of the show, we were going to get to your brand purpose statement, what
Mm.
Pocketsmith stands for beyond making money. And I think maybe you just teed it up there a little bit too, because you're saying it's not about the money, it's about really helping people. Your brand purpose statement, according to the StoryCycle Genie, is Pocketsmith exists to empower people to achieve financial confidence and life goals through unprecedented visibility into their financial future.
That's a ding ding right there. You've hit hit the nail on the head. Our mission does extend in three directions. One is our duty of care to our customers, for sure. The second is to our partners and the people who work with us. And we don't like business that is transactional. We care about the relationships that we build, and it really makes the world a much more beautiful place when you're working with people that you care about, and that when you share values with. And you may have heard the word ikigai, which is that Japanese sort of Venn diagram of, like, when you're working with people with similar values, that's when you have a real strength, and that's when relationships really last. So, time and again, we've had to evaluate working relationships, and your gut feel tells you that, okay, this could be quite transactional. It's not wrong, but it's probably not going to go the distance. So,
Mhm.
we've got a bank of partners that we absolutely love working with, and we'll continue to add to them. The third is our team. It's so important, and I love getting up and going to work every day because we've built such a great culture, and it mirrors the duty of care we have for our customers as well. I spoke about embracing diversity, and there's a lot that we've imbued into our product and into the principles in which our product has for our users. Things like being non-judgmental, giving people that psychological space, a place to experiment, to fail, to try again. All of that exists for our users as well as for our teams. And these are the people that, we're, as a software business, we're also reasonably high touch. So we make we've got just about half our company is support, customer support. They're they are the Pocketsmith super users who are there to listen to our customers come in with some really varied ways of sort of how do I solve this money situation I've got, and they're there to help them out. They're like they're in a workshop. They're like, look, come on in, and we'll sit down with you, and we'll just sort of straighten this out, right? So those are the three prongs. That is really, I guess, it encapsulates the mission overall for the business. We're building a team, a place where people feel really happy to come to work, where we feel energized, where we feel excited about the human condition, and that manifests itself in our partners as well as how we treat our customers.
And you have a special for our listeners, I believe, too.
I believe I do. Yes, we have 50% off for all your listeners of our foundation plan for 2 months. And we do have a URL which we will publish on your site. Should I read it out? I'm stalling
Yeah,
for
read it
time.
out, and I will also put it in the show notes, certainly.
Okay. Now I have the link here.
There we go.
I'm going to do the magician's
Drum
hand.
roll, please.
Okay, now please go to pocketsmith.com/business of story podcast with hyphens in between the words to get to a landing page with this deal that's exclusive for you. And we hope that you'll give Pocketsmith a shot. They'll give you 50% off our foundation plan for the first 2 months.
Half price for the first 2 months, and all the money you can save doing that will more than pay for the next 5-year subscription.
Easily, yes. And you'll have fun with it. You'll get some insight into your money, and you can start to dream about what's to come.
Well, thank you, Jason. This has been great. And thank you for being so open to walk through our StoryCycle Genie. My last question for you is, you didn't see this report until about 4 hours ago. And when it came unsolicited through your email, what was your take on it?
Well, I was slightly panicked to begin with. There were quite a few words in there. And I thought, okay, I do have to do a little bit of homework. But when I started reading, I thought, wow, this is this really is like what a genie would produce. I thought it was great. It covered off a lot of what we were doing. And I think, to your point, I felt after the initial sort of spike of like, so many words, I felt really comforted that our message had gotten across, particularly for, like this is the first time we've had a conversation, Park, and for you to almost have such a good grounding in what our brand story is, what some of our foundational values and principles are, and what our ambitions are. uh, you know, it was great. So thank you for sending that over and for putting our business through it. And in fact, for making an exception for us and walking us through it. It's felt like a bit of a live workshop, which has been a lot of fun. It's kept me on my toes, and yeah, I've found it super valuable.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jason. I appreciate you being here. And now I got to go figure out if I still got any checks left in my checkbook.
Go have a look at that checkbook. Yes, make sure they're not rubber ones.
Have a great one, my friend.
Thank you, Park.
Thanks so much for listening to this edition of The Business of Story. If you know of anyone who could benefit from Jason's advice about turning your financial picture from numbers into narrative, then by all means, share this episode with them. And you heard Jason's take on our amazing StoryCycle Genie. If you want to test the strength of your brand story right now for free, visit StoryCycleGenie.ai. It will not only reveal a grade about how well you're doing, but it's going to give you a 14-point storytelling assessment that validates what you're doing well, reveals gaps that you can fix quickly, and even inspire you with new ways to think about telling your story. So run your brand story through it today at StoryCycleGenie.ai. Then I hope you'll join me on Monday as Yuri Billist, host of the Web3 CMO Stories podcast, will join us with insights from his new book, The Future CMO, How Modern CMOs Win with Trust, Tech, and smart visibility. You're going to love it because he touches on everything from AI to how brilliant CMOs bring their audacious human nature to everything they do. That'll be next Monday. And until then, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is a story you tell yourself. So make that one epic. Thanks so much for listening.